Well, welcome back. We are working on our M110 self-propelled howitzer in 1/35th scale by ITALERI. My finger goes there somewhere. So I think this is part 5. So we're going to continue. We're going to pick right up where we left off, where we started to assemble the gun carriage and all that. So let's jump down to the bench and finish this assembly thing up.
So a quick look at our instructions here. Now we already have the turntable put together and the cylinders done and the carriage. So now we got all these little parts that we need to put on, and we're starting off here in step 7 on the left side. I had to check my hand to make sure. Left side of the gun. So before we get to the left side, let's start at the top. And we have these little plates that go on. Now these adjust some part of the mechanism. And I did go ahead and start to cement this into place. However, if you look at it, you can see that it has a slight tilt to it. And that's not what it needs. That's not going to look right. So we need to go ahead and pull this part off. And we need to make some adjustments here. So the left and right side here, they should be the same height. And they should be flat across the top. That way it will accept that part that needs to go on top of it there. So we're going to have to sand that down and get them equal on the left and right. That way the parts will look aligned because they kind of need to be that way. And if you have any questions when it comes to how a certain vehicle is supposed to look, you can find plenty of photographs online, and that'll help you out in understanding the orientation of things. So once I've got that straightened out, we'll go ahead and then cement these pieces that goes on the top of the left and right pieces of the structure here. I'm not sure what to call them, but we'll go ahead and get those pieces on. And we're going to want to make sure that they're aligned correctly and they look good when you view it from the side and from the front and back. You want to make sure everything is nice and straight, because a crooked part will draw the eye immediately, and we don't want that. Next up, we do have a gearbox that we need to put together. So it does have one little side piece that we need to cement on. Now this gearbox is used by the gunner to adjust the gun left and right. I guess that would be called deflection. And we need to put that together and kind of deal with a little bit of the seam cleanup and what have you there. We want this to look as unison as possible, like it's, all meant to go together there. And it does have a half moon slot in the bottom of the turntable there that it's going to fit into. And you just want to make sure that you get it fully engaged because it needs to set all the way down. Now there is a little bit of movement in it, so you're going to want to make sure that it's nice and straight before the cement sets up. So the next part I'm going to put in is going to be the seat post. So I'm kind of starting down low now and working our way up. I don't want to put any little fragile parts on that I'm going to be knocking around. So next up we have this little storage box here. And as you would expect from our previous experience with this kit, the bottom of it, which is where we're going to cement it down to the turntable, is not flat. So you do have to square that. And then we'll put a little bit of cement there. It doesn't have a locator pin or a locator hole. They just have a little rectangular section there on the turntable where it sits. So it's important that we get that lined up. And we do want it to set vertical. So do be careful as you put on other parts that you're not kind of squeezing this in and knocking out of alignment. Otherwise, you'll have to come back later and fix that. Now the next part we're going to put on is going to be the crank that goes on top of our gearbox there. I've left it off till now because I didn't want to be kind of, you know, knocking it around and getting it less than square, because it does need to look straight, and alignment is always important. Next, we can put our sight in. So this is the gunner's sight, and it too has a half moon hole and peg orientation there. Not a particularly tight fit right here, so you do need to be careful and make sure that you keep the parts lined up and you've got it nice and straight. It should protrude out from the gun mount horizontally. Now when it comes to our seats, there is a couple of little ejector pin marks that need to be filled on the bottom of these. You kind of expect that by now for this kit. And it kind of sits right here on the side, and that's for the gunner. However, we are not going to glue it into place. We're going to set it aside. We're going to paint that separately. So now we can turn our attention to the loader, and this is the ram mechanism, and it goes on to that little swivel piece that we put on previously in the last video. And we're just going to put a little bit of extra thin on there, and it has a nice positive location for it there. Just make sure that you square up these parts from the molding process, otherwise it will sit a little bit canted. And then on top of that comes the loading tray. This is the tray that holds the round that the crew's getting ready to load into the gun. So it does hinge, and as you can see here, it works. So you don't have to cement that into place. And everything appears to be working pretty good. So one thing I want to point out is it kind of looks like an ejector pin mark here on the side of that little box that goes up underneath the gunner's, did I say governors? Gunner's seat. And if we look on the instructions, it is printed in, that detail's there. So don't mistakenly take it for an ejector pin mark and fill it. That's a little detail that's actually supposed to be on the box. And I'm telling you this because I almost filled it, and that would have been a mistake. So with that done, we can move on to step 8 here. Now, some of this we've already got put together, but we do have some parts to put on the side of the turntable there for the assistant gunner. And yeah, I've got another gearbox and seat mount and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and put that stuff together. Again, we're going to start off with the gearbox, and it's arranged the same way the one on the opposite side is. Just have to put the side into place. And of course, we're going to have some cleanup to do. That's to be expected on pretty much every part of this kit. But anything that's going to be easily seen. And then we need to put that in its location. Again, another half moon peg and hole orientation there. And you want to make sure that it's straight. Because it does have just a little bit of wiggle room here, and we don't want it to be misaligned. Now it does have a little handle that goes on it, but we're not going to put it on yet because we have some other parts that we need to go ahead and locate, and then we'll do that last. Next, we need to assemble the seat support for the assistant gunner, and the bracket goes onto a box of a sort. Well, actually, the box goes onto the bracket. Just need to align that up and get that located. Make sure that you've got the correct orientation because there is a little bit of leeway here, a little bit of play, and you don't want the box to be tilted at a funny angle from the turntable. It all kind of needs to line up. And for attaching this, we do have the pin and hole location arrangement there, which is nice to see. ITALERI's not very good at giving us this kind of joint to locate our parts with. Oftentimes, they've got those little those little outlines that you've got to stick your part in, and no positive connection point there. We do want to make sure, though, that our alignment's good, because the seat needs to set level, and then that little box needs to be parallel with the flat surface there of the turntable. Next up, we have this kind of looks like a strut of some kind with a handle on it, and that's okay. I have no idea what it is, but we'll go ahead and put that into place. It does have some pin locations, which is good, and we'll just cement that in. And next up, we do have the actual turntable motor. This is the motor that hydraulically operated. It engages the teeth on the hull of the vehicle to turn our turntable there to correct aiming of the gun. So we need to cement that one into place. And we can check the fit of our assistant gunner's chair or seat to make sure that it's all going to fit correctly. Now we're going to paint these up separately, so we'll just set that aside. And now we can put on our direct fire sight. So it's kind of like a rifle scope on the side of the gun here, and the assistant gunner is responsible for that in case the vehicle is used for direct fire. And it has the same half moon and half round peg alignment, and we'll just put that into place. And with that done, we can go ahead and attach that handle for our gearbox that the assistant gunner operates. And this is the, I believe it's the elevation. So we'll go ahead and put that on. Now the gearbox that's on this side actually has a small cover that goes on it. So we're going to go ahead and cement that cover into place now. Now that the gearbox is pretty much fixed into place, we don't have to worry about knocking it out of alignment while we put that cover on. So while we wait for all that to dry, we can start working on this gun tube. Now we started the assembly of this in the last video because we needed it to kind of space out the cradle that it sets in. Now lucky for us, this seam that runs down the bottom is slightly standing proud. So I'm just going to use my curved blade here to kind of scrape it down. We need this as flat as we can get it, but I don't want to have to remove too much plastic here. So to help aid in sanding, the scraping is going to work to our advantage. So with that done, we'll go ahead and start our sanding. Now, I know that I'm not going to get this perfectly flat, but that's okay because of its location. It's not going to be all that visible, just the very end of it. So we will just kind of get it as smooth as we possibly can here, and make sure that these parts are kind of blended together from the left and the right halves. So that's really encouraging. It actually looks pretty good. I was kind of worried about that for a minute, but I think that's going to do us just fine. Yeah, not bad. So with the bottom of it done, we can start working on the seam across the top. So we do have to be very careful here. We want to try to maintain as much as possible the round profile of the barrel. And I am trying to make these two sides match as much as possible. When we glued it up, we were careful to try to make sure that the sides matched as close as possible, but of course there's going to be a little bit of variation here and there. And yeah, we're going to have to reduce this a little bit and get that seam well blended. So I started off with a 400 grit sanding stick, and now we're moving to a 600 grit sanding stick. And you can still see that we do have a seam still there, but that's okay. as we continue our sanding and polishing, that's going to pretty much disappear, which is exactly what we want. Don't really want to have to use any filler here, but by carefully sanding it, we'll be able to eliminate the need to use any kind of filler or Mr. Surfacer. At least I hope so. Now we're going to continue with our progression here to an 800 grit and go over the seam with it. Doing this basically the same thing. What we're doing is we're replacing larger scratches with smaller ones. That's the process of sanding. But as long as we don't heavily sand in a single spot at a single angle, does all that make sense? You know, just keep your sanding stick moving crossways and around the surface, then we should avoid any flat spots there. And that's really what we want to do, is make sure that we don't get any flat spots here. And then we'll move on to 1,000 grit. So that's 1,000, and that's fairly fine. So we're going to do the same thing here, just continuing the process of sanding this seam down. Now, we're spending a lot of time here on this gun tube because this is the main item on the tank, and it's probably the first thing people are going to look at when they come to look at the actual model. Did I say tank? Well, I meant self-propelled howitzer. It's not a tank. Then we're going to go ahead and hit it with our flexible foam-filled sanding sticks here to kind of make sure that we've still got that circumference, that nice rounded look going. And it's a little bit finer than the 1,000. I think this is a 2,000 grit. And then we'll progress on all the way down to a polishing stick. And here is where you really can appreciate the taking the time to use the different grits, because the polishing stick will bring back that luster that you had on the finished plastic before we got started. And if there is any seam left, you will see it. And lucky for us, I don't see any. So I'm just going to continue polishing the barrel out, and that should look really nice. So don't rush the process. Just sand it and, progress through your grits. And there is a little bit of an offset there on the bottom. Well, it's not really so much an offset as a slight concave end, but it'll be okay. Now we do need to straighten up the ends of these pieces here. This is the main gun barrel section. We have to do the same thing for the other part of the gun tube, which is the end of it, which is all round. But progressing through our sanding, different sanding sticks, and giving it a nice polish, and making sure everything is square, I think we're going to be all right with it. Now, from just using the polishing stick, you can actually tell where the seam is, and it probably won't show up in paint, but if there is any big deviation, you'll be able to actually pick it out and then go back and resand that area and polish it up again and make sure that everything meets, and that really just blends completely away. Now when we go to put our gun tube together here with these two major pieces, you can kind of see that we do have, if I could get into frame there, sorry about that. You can see the way it was molded. It kind of leaves a beveled look there, and it shouldn't do that. It should butt flat up against that. So we could either sand the end of the piece that inserts there, or we can bevel the hole where it's going into. And that's what I'm going to choose to do. So I'm just going to take a round file here, and we're just going to bevel that so that that gun barrel will really seat much deeper. That way we don't have to try to keep that shoulder square on that end section that needs to go in. So the beveling is not a 100% solution, but it does get it really, really close. And I think we can fill the rest of the gap with that perfect plastic putty. And that should take care of it for us. So we're going to go ahead and cement this up. So now we can turn our attention to the breech section. So we do have this ring that has a locator tab on it. However, you can put this in backwards, so make sure that you keep the orientation correct. Otherwise, the little flat there for locating it on the gun tube will be on the wrong side. So we'll once we're confident that we've got it in the right orientation, we'll go ahead and cement it in. And you do have to sand the edges of this down to get a good fit. And with that done, we can go ahead and look at our hinges. Now the top bracket for our hinge has a little nub on it there, I guess you'd call it. That needs to be, like I say, the top piece. So make sure that you don't get these mixed up. And as you can see from the sanding marks on these pieces, they are, well, they do need to be squared a bit and sanded so that they're going to look the part. And we can go ahead and cement the bottom one into place. And a little bit of To Me Extra Thin will get us there. And we'll just put that hinge into place there. So next we're going to put the hinged breech block into place. And just going to line it up with the lower hinge. And then we'll put a little bit of To Me Extra Thin at the location of the upper hinge. We just want to make sure that we don't get it on the pin and hole area there. Because we do want this swinging breech block to actually work. Now it can always be a little tricky using To Me Extra Thin on a working part, so you do want to make sure that you haven't cemented it and that it still works once you've got the parts into place here. So we're just double checking the fit and the alignment and make sure everything is well, you know, hunky-dory. So as we're continuing with our breech mechanism and me dropping parts, we do have this cylinder looking piece here. I know that it has something to do with the locking mechanism, I think, or the camming action for the breech block. The important thing is that it sits on that little nub right on top of the hinge. So the short end goes to the little nub and the long locator end goes into the slot. That's right there in the breech housing. So that's where we're going to cement it up. And just touch a little bit of your To Me Extra Thin there and go ahead and locate the part. Just make sure that it's all lined up and it looks straight. So if that didn't make any sense to you, what I just said, it's supposed to look like this. So there's one more part we need to install, and that's this very small handle. And it does have a little, I mean, there's no real location, or I should say a positive hole or locator for it. But just make sure you got the handle turned around to where the little round section there causes the handle to stand out from the breech assembly there, just like so. And we're going to have to be careful not to knock that out of alignment there while everything dries. Now we can go ahead and align and install the breech assembly right onto the gun tube. Now you could put it on earlier and do the buildup of the hinges and all that while it's attached to the gun tube. I chose to build it as a sub-assembly and then attach it after I had all that together. But that's totally up to you. The instructions doesn't tell us one way or the other, so it's kind of a modeler's choice here. Now there is a nice little detail that ITALERI has included in the kit, and that is these rams for the recoil mechanism. that is located on the bottom of the gun. Now, you can't really see them unless the gun is out of battery, but I think it's a nice detail that they put in there. One of the things that you're going to have to really double check and make sure that you pay attention to their alignment, because there is a plate inside the actual gun carrier that these two rods have to slide into. So the large one goes in and it's easily aligned. It's not that big of a deal. The smaller rod, however, the hole that receives it is a little bit larger than it actually needs to be, which means that you've got just a little bit of slop in there. Now, normally that's not an issue, except when you consider the length of this, that becomes kind of problematic. So you do want to make sure that you've got it lined up and that it is seated correctly, and it needs to be parallel with the larger rod. Otherwise, you're going to have an alignment issue when you go to slide the gun into place. With that being said, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and slide the gun into place. That way, these rods are not set yet, and we do know that everything fits and that those two rods align themselves correctly with that little plate that's inside the gun carrier. And it slides in place just like so. And we won't be removing this anytime soon. So we do want to make sure that the rods are perfectly aligned, and we'll let them solidify themselves with the gun slightly out of battery there. Okay, so it's time for some perfect plastic putty. Yeah, you guys knew I was going to be using this, didn't you? Yeah, so it is a water-soluble putty, and I'm just kind of stuffing it into that seam on our gun barrel here, or gun tube. Really don't want that gap to be visible, and this filler is excellent for taking care of little areas like this, and I have got it all over the place. So before it dries, I'll pull off all that excess there with a with a cotton bud. I don't want to really get down into the seam yet, but I don't really want all this kind of laying around there and drying. It'll be a little bit more difficult. Not impossible. It's easy to come off, but we'll just go ahead and wipe that off right now. In order to get a much nicer finish on it, though, I do let it dry in the seam there that we're trying to eliminate. And then we'll use water and one of those cotton buds to clean everything up and smooth it all out. And once this is painted, there shouldn't be any indication that there was ever a seam there to begin with. ITALERI was nice enough to give us some rounds to go with our gun here, some ammunition. They are a two-piece affair, and there's a total of 3 rounds. Of course, we're going to have to cement these together. And the way they designed these, the tip is full round on one of the halves, one of the sides. So it does leave a little seam just on one side where the other half of the projectile has gone together. So we're going to fill that with the perfect plastic putty. And once everything's dry, we're going to start cleaning these up. I'm using a curved triangular file here. Now, just a regular triangular file, as long as it has a fine corner on it, should be more than sufficient. Around the circumference of the back end of the shell here, we do have these little grooves, which are used to seal the round in the chamber, or I should say in the bore, and induce the spin on the round. But we do need to kind of clean that up, especially right there at the seam, and that's what we're working on here. Just a couple of passes with a triangular file ought to clean that up for us. Shouldn't be too noticeable. I hope not anyway. Once we get these painted up, it should be fine. Now we're going to use the same process of sanding the seam, and we should be able to sand this seam out and not have to come back in and use any filler on them. It'd be nice if our rounds look good. So we're going to progressively sand these down, these seams that is, with different grits, just like we did on the actual gun tube. And once we've got this completely polished down, that seam will completely disappear for us, which is good. We don't want to get lazy here and not give the ammunition the same amount of detail we do the rest of the vehicle, because that would be noticeable, and it would detract, from the overall effect of the look that we're going for. Okay, so that is step 8 complete, and step 9, we've already done everything but put the gun into place. Oh, and the crew seat there, of course, we're going to keep that off for painting. And we've already assembled those vinyl tracks. So here is our gun on the turntable. It's ready to be assembled, and our breech mechanism opens. If I can get it to open. It does open. There we go. Yeah. So everything works on it. So we are going to have to get maximum elevation on our gun tube in order to get the turntable to slot down into the upper hole. And everything is working nice and smoothly. That's good to see. Now we do have parts that we haven't attached yet. Of course, the ammunition, the seats, the tools, the fuel cans, all that stuff, we're going to paint that separately. And of course our wheels, we'll be painting those separately as well. So we need to protect these and keep them from getting lost until we're ready to paint them. So assembly is pretty much complete with everything that's in the instructions. However, we do have some parts left that are not included in the instructions. So first thing we're going to look at is these. They seem to be some straps, but after looking at it really close, they are actually the rim of the empty can holders that come in the kit. And they are the bottom rims that goes right onto those pieces there. They do have a beveled end. The beveled side goes down. And that's where they go. So if you're going to use these parts to display the vehicle without, with a missing fuel can or something like that, then yeah, that will come in handy. Now the instructions doesn't tell us anything about these parts. So it's up to your imagination here, how you want to use them. The next part is a rod with a disc attached to it. Kind of looks like maybe a cleaning rod or a manual ram or something like that. I don't know, but we'll set it aside. The instructions don't tell us where that goes. And we do have some chain assemblies here. Now, I kind of figured out where these go. Now, the instructions doesn't mention them again. But as you can see, they are clearly chains. And I think I know where they go. At least I know where we're going to put them. And that's going to be for the actual seat. So they attach to the backrest, and they'll attach to the seat that folds down. So that's what we're going to do with these chains. We'll paint those up and weather those to give it a much better, more complete look. So yeah, the instructions doesn't mention these either. So we'll set them aside, and we'll paint those up to go on the model for our final assembly. The next part we're going to look at is these little discs. Now these are part number 10A. They're on the B sprue with our drive sprockets, as a matter of fact. And they appear to be the perfect size to go right into the center of our drive sprockets. And I imagine they added these parts to cover up that big sink that's in the center of these. And yeah, looking at photographs and everything of the real vehicle, it does have this kind of a plate look here with a small hole drilled in the middle of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cement these in, and we're going to drill a small hole to replicate what I see in the actual pictures. And I'm pretty sure this is where it's supposed to go. So we're going to put them there. Now we do have 2 more parts, and this is parts number 117. They look like 2 small handles or 2 small caps, or take your pick. They do have a small locator hole in the back side of them here, but I have no idea where these parts go. So I will cut them loose and save them. At first I thought that they might go onto the handles for the elevation and the manual swing operation there at the gearboxes, but in looking at photographs though, it's just a vertical handle, so yeah, they don't go there. So I'll just hang on to them, and we may find a use for them before we're done with the build.
Okay, so we've got it all together, and everything that works or is supposed to work, it does. So our loader with our ram, that works. Oh well, I mean the ram doesn't have a ram, but you know, it's part of the mechanism there. So that's on, that's good. The gun elevates and it'll stay in place, and then of course we can do our swivel and adjustments there. And of course our travel lock, as you can see, dangling in right there, just like the original. Oh, there we go. Set it down. So even the breech opens. Not much in there to look at, but yeah, it does open. So I don't have the spade on it right now. I'm just leaving it off because I don't want to lose those little pins that we made in a previous video. So we don't want to do that. So I guess next up, we're going to start painting. So look forward to that. That'll be next week. And special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys I keep making these videos, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. And if you're new to the channel, I hope I earned your subscription. So until I see you guys next Friday, you guys stay safe.